Hey everyone, what's going on? I told myself I wasn't going to make a video until I finished writing this book that I am working on, but as I've been writing this book, I have had so much synchronicity with the mainstream media that I have to document about it on this channel, because part of the reason why I'm writing that book is because I feel like people need to understand that this knowledge that I am presenting on this channel, it's much bigger than the cabal does everything. And the world is created in a certain way, and it's all connected and all interrelated. And it's not to say that the cabal or the Jesuits, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, it's not to say that they aren't using this knowledge to, create some type of magic and use it to rule over the world. But the thing is that if you are drawn to a certain story, or, say I clicked on this story right here about a park ranger, right? And I documented about this story. This story is now a part of my life. It is a part of my everyday connections. It is a part to the narrative of the world that I am living. And, it might not come up for another year, but I guarantee that if, by me clicking on this story and placing importance on this story, sometime in the future, I'm going to learn how this story was actually related to some other things that are going on in my life, because that's how everything in the world is truly connected. Once you bring it into your life, it is now a part of you, no matter if a cabal created this story to produce some type of magic. I hope people understand that. If I clicked on this story about Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump, I guarantee at some point it's going to be connected back to, the State of the Union address that I documented about with Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump on the date of 2/5/2019, and how it synced up to Donald Trump getting $2.5 billion to build the wall, and Trump equals 25, and Pence equals 25, and Nancy Pelosi equals 52. She's the 52nd Speaker of the House, the mirror of 25, and so on, right? If I click on this story and document about it, at some point, not only is it going to be related to my old information, it's got to be related to something new if you really pay attention to what you're documenting about. So anyway, I guess if you're new to this channel and you're still listening, you're going to have to go back. And even if you're old to this channel, what I'm going to talk about in these videos, or this video, is a lot of the stuff that happened in 2019. So I've been writing this book, and a big piece is I've been talking about the year 2019 and a bunch of these interrelated themes that are going on. And some of the major themes were this duck theme and how it was connected to Pink the singer, and also a Buffy the Vampire Slayer theme, and also a theme with the band Slipknot. And there's just so much information to re-explain. There's a troll theme that goes along with the Buffy theme. And I know it sounds like a lot, but I explain it a lot better in this book that I am creating. But there's just so much to remember, and I even have to go back and look at my old stuff to remember why it made sense together, And anyway, so as I'm writing about all the stuff from 2019, I'm trying to keep it somewhat organized so it makes sense and so on. And on February 15th last year, I got a YouTube strike on this old video that I put out in 2011. It was just a music video I had called Club Life. And they said that the video was offensive or something, and they took the video down. And what makes no sense is there's nothing really that offensive in it. It was just like pictures of people at a club, right? And the only thing I could think of was that I took a .gif file, or however you say that, and like a little animation, and it was of the movie The Breakfast Club. And of course, The Breakfast Club has Molly Ringwald in it, and Molly Ringwald is famous for the movie Pretty in Pink. And on the movie Pretty in Pink, at the very end, her best friend named Ducky, he gets a different girl who is played by Christy Swanson, who just so happens to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer on the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that same day that I got that strike, there was a shooting in Aurora, Illinois. And a few days before that, there was a story about the Aurora Duck boat crash that happened in Seattle, or it was in Seattle on the Aurora Bridge. And it was a story about, I think, how people had got their settlements from it, right? And we also had the story about Jussie Smollett and doing his fake thing where he got beat up or whatever and so on. And the first movie that he was in was actually The Mighty Ducks. So I knew that it was all important to this Mighty Duck narrative that I had followed from 2018. And in 2018, I randomly listened to the band called Drowning Pool in the beginning of July. And it was odd because I hadn't listened to them in forever. And so I listened to this band. I knew it was important. I even took a screenshot on my phone. And then I was following the death of the rapper XXXTentacion, and his cousin then drowned in a pool. And then I saw Chikozy Truth made a video about Drowning Pool, and it had nothing to do with anything I had talked about, and he didn't even know I even talked about it. And it was all synced up to everything I was talking about. And then we got the ex-Philadelphia Flyer goalie who died drowning in a pool named Ray Emery. And what I talked about in that video was that it reminded me a lot of Goldberg, the goalie, on the Mighty Ducks, who says that he's going to go back to Philly in the movie, but he never goes back to Philly. And he's the goalie, so this guy dies. And I wondered if there was going to be another drowning story somehow related to Goldberg, the goalie, right? And 2 days later, we got another duck boat drowning that was in Branson, Missouri. And then a few days later, on August 6th, Goldberg, the goalie, got arrested. And on that same day, Pink was in the news for canceling her tour in Australia. And that was also the same day that Alex Jones got kicked off of Twitter and whatever off of the social media stuff. And my original thing with Pink had to do with I was watching a Zachary K. Hubbard video, and he said, "There you go," right as I said, "There you go" to my cat to jump on my lap or whatever. And when I looked up Pink, her first single was called "There You Go," and I deduced from stuff I was talking about back then that Pink would probably sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl that year, and then Pink did sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl that year. And Pretty in Pink was a movie created by, what's the guy's name? John Hughes. And I looked up John Hughes, and it said the last movie that he had filmed or created was called Drill Bit Taylor. And in that movie, that's the last movie that Goldberg the goalie was in. And he just so happened to be the bus driver in the movie. And Owen Wilson gets his pinky finger chopped off, and pinky finger was actually something important to the Pink theme I was talking about. So there's all this interrelated stuff going on with a duck theme and Pink and so on. And that's about all I'm going to re-explain. There's so much more going on with it. But the other night, as I was writing in the book, I started writing about all this, the duck theme and how it was important. And I even talked about this. I had Synchronicity at my friend Cody's house. I was telling him all about the duck theme and how it was synced up to the Mighty Ducks. And I went in the bathroom and I peed, and all of a sudden I heard him yell, "No way!" And he just kept saying, "No way! How is that possible?" And I came out of the bathroom, I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Look at the TV." He's like, "Right when you went in to go to the bathroom, the coach of the Mighty Ducks came out on the Jimmy Fallon show." And I was like, that is crazy, you know? Like, well, I'm telling him about the duck theme. We're not even watching the TV. And then, didn't even know he was on the show because he was in the back. He wasn't even on the show at the time. And right when I went pee, he came out, and I knew that it was important. So anyway, I'm documenting about all of this, and as I'm documenting about it, I stop and I go to CNN, and CNN, they have a headline story about the Duck Dynasty guy and there was a drive-by shooting at his house. I'm going, what are the odds I'm documenting about a duck theme, and the duck theme ends, you know? Then there's a main story about the guy from Duck Dynasty. And I looked up the guy who supposedly shot his house up. My internet's going so slow, but his name's Daniel, just like my name. And his birthday is exactly the same as my birthday, November 10th. Well, he's like 1 year older than me, November 10th. And if you went from my birthday to the day that this guy got arrested, it was 5 months and 16 days. And recall, if you go to this post, what I'm writing about here, it was about the number 516. And I was following this because of a whole bunch of other synchronicity I had with The Big Bang Theory and Cheers, and The Big Bang Theory surpassed Cheers. And I noticed that on the very last episode of The Big Bang Theory, it was going to be on the date of 5/16. And it was synced up to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then I watched that episode on 5/16, and Sarah Michelle Gellar was the running joke on that. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, of course, is Buffy from the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she actually goes to Sheldon's meeting in Sweden when he wins the Nobel Prize, and her date is Raj, the Indian guy. And I'll explain this as we move along here, because something happened today with these Bollywood actors that are dying that I just realized the importance to after I documented about Donald Trump meeting the Prime Minister in India. But notice Alec Baldwin equaled 516. The story happened 5 months and 16 days before Jimmy Fallon's birthday. And I knew that 516 was important because I was at work one day, and there's this guy who looks like John C. Reilly, the actor in Step Brothers with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell, of course, he's on the movie Step Brothers, but he's also in Saturday Night Live, and the original duck theme began because of my friend Sam having this duck synchronicity in his life, and I read his blog, and I was like, dude, that same day I watched The Mighty Ducks, and it was the only movie I watched like the whole weekend, and the same day he had the synchronicity with ducks, I watched The Mighty Ducks. But one of the things he documented about with his duck theme was that he was watching Saturday Night Live, and Will Ferrell said something about the Chinese restaurant and you can't get any duck sauce or something. I can't remember the exact wording. Something about going to the Chinese restaurant without the duck sauce. And China plays a huge important piece to all of this as well, because I documented about China all summer because it was synced up to Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair. And China was hosting the World's Fair, and then the Expos went on to win the World Series, and, you know, the Expos are named after the World's Fair that was held in Montreal, and a bunch of other stuff, you know, and then it was synced up to South Park, which maybe I'll explain here in a little bit, but I just wanted to point out that it was connected to Saturday Night Live. So, get the story about Duck Dynasty while I'm documenting about the duck theme. And I'm talking about how it's connected to Saturday Night Live. And if you look at the other stories here with the Duck Dynasty thing, there's also another one right above it about Saturday Night Live and Miley Cyrus. So I was like, that can't be a coincidence here. And I guess I never looked into the Brad Pitt thing here, but Saturday Night Live. Also, DJ Jazzy Jeff was on here. And a long time ago, before Uncle Phil died, it was right after Paul Walker had died, there was a story about one of the guys on Duck Dynasty hating gay people, and his name was Phil. And then we had Uncle Phil die, and then at the Super Bowl, while a guy named Philip Phillips was singing a song called Gone, 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 they stopped it, and they announced that Philip Seymour Hoffman had died, and the word Philip means a lover of horses, and then the Broncos went on to win the Super Bowl. Of course, the Bronco is the white horse, and much more to that. Or I could be wrong. My internet's too slow. I can't remember. Maybe the Broncos didn't win the Super Bowl. One team blew out the other team. It was either the Broncos or the Seahawks. Can't even remember right now. But, interesting, Miley Cyrus. So I looked up Miley Cyrus, and, wrong post here. Maybe I didn't pull it up. Oh, it's right here. So I looked up Miley Cyrus, thinking there might be something important to it, and of course, she was singing the Pink Floyd song, And in 2019, I mentioned the importance of China landing on the dark side of the moon for the first time while Donald Trump had the shutdown over the wall. And for years, I've been documenting about how China is important to the Houston Rockets and the space theme, and how it's synced up to Kobe Bryant's Achilles injury. And last summer, I was documenting all about it, and then Kobe Bryant ends up dying just after, coronavirus all of a sudden gets real popular. The coronavirus supposedly came from China, but, she's singing the Pink Floyd song. Think about Pink Floyd, who has The Wall, and also the album called The Dark Side of the Moon. And anyway, I looked up Miley Cyrus, and her birthday is November 23rd, 1992. And I was like, that's so interesting considering my girlfriend, that's her exact birthday, November 23rd, 1992. And, what are the odds? The other story has a guy that has my birthday, and I click on Miley Cyrus, and then it has my girlfriend's birthday. And I got a YouTube copyright strike, like I said, on the date of 2/15, and Saturday Night Live equals 215. Also, Aurora is important because on Wayne's World on Saturday Night Live, it's set in Aurora, Illinois, or whatever. And I mentioned that and how it was synced up to Dana Carvey, and that possibly there was something with him portraying Ross Perot, and then Ross Perot died a few months after I documented about it. But really, he was talking about Ross Perot in 2019, He dies the same day billionaire Tom Steyer decides to run for president, Ross Perot, the billionaire. They even had the same birthdays and everything. But my YouTube strike lasted until the date of 5/16. And, I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So, Miley Cyrus, this duck theme, Saturday Night Live, all the stuff I'm writing about in my book. It's almost like I'm writing the news, And this same day, there was also an explosion, and it blew up the gas station in Erling, Iowa. And what's funny is I didn't write this in the book, but I contemplated how I could fit it in, but I wanted to make it a little bit more simple. But Nipsey Hussle was important to this as well. There was an Ethiopian airline crash on the date of 3/10, and it was synced up to World Lion Day that happened last year on Tisha B'Av on August 10th, the same day Slipknot was playing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time, and Donald Trump had said he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, which is why it was important. Hopefully we'll explain that, but Erling, Iowa was important to marathon symbolism, and when Nipsey Hussle died, all of his stuff was about marathon. His first album was called Marathon, and then it was called The Marathon Continues, and he got shot outside of his Marathon clothing store. And the word marathon in gematria equals 310, reminding me of the 310 Ethiopian airline crash, and also all of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff that I was telling to watch out for the date of 310 because of was synced up to 310. Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310. Luke Perry died 3 months and 10 days after I originally documented about it. Buffy Summers equals 310. The TV show first aired on the date of 310, and so on. And I was just trying to figure out how to piece this in to the story, and then I just never did. And then the next day, the gas station blew up, and the gas station just so happens to have gematria of 310. But this town was important because one of the first famous exorcisms that ever happened in the world was in this town. And the girl came from Marathon, Wisconsin, and her name equaled 310. Emma Schmidt equaled 310, just like the word marathon. And if you look up Erling, Iowa, it says that they changed their name from Marathon, Iowa to Erling, Iowa, because there was already a town called Marathon, Iowa. So, I was just trying to fit all this in, and then, of course, there's an explosion in this town, and the gas station that blows up equals 310. And then the next day, if it'll load here, the next day I get home from work or whatever, or maybe I was at work, can't remember, but yeah, it was right when I got off work. I got on my phone and went to CNN, and they had a story about the duck boat drowning from 2018, the one that was synced up to Goldberg, the goalie. It even happened 39 days after me and Sam had Synchronicity with the duck theme or whatever. Or it was 39 days before Goldberg's birthday, and Goldberg was 39 years old that year, and his real name's Sean Weiss that equals 39. And me and Sam's Synchronicity was 3 months and 9 days before Goldberg's birthday. That's what it was. Right? But what are the odds? You know, the the Duck Dynasty guys in the news. Just right as I'm writing about the duck theme, then the next day, there's a duck boat drowning story from 2018, basically updating us on the duck theme. And the next day at work, so it's just craziness. So the next day at work, I just kept on writing. I was writing about all of this stuff I was documenting about and trying to keep it in order of what I was doing. And in April of 2019, I documented about the horse Omaha Beach and how it was synced up to D-Day, and the horse owner was named Richard Mandela. And then the next day or a few days later, somebody commented on one of my old videos that I talked about the Mandela effect in this movie called The Adventures of Lyle Swan. But I swear it said Lynn Swan on Wikipedia at one time. And, I don't really cover the Mandela effect that much. But, some of them things are really interesting to me. I don't know if it's just a false memory or what. It's something that's kind of hard to prove, it seems. So I don't cover it that often, even though I am interested in it. But, this guy, Richard Mandela, then I get a comment on my, video about where I talked about the Mandela effect. So I knew there was something important to the Mandela effect back in 2019. And I'll explain a little bit more here in a second. But when I was at work that next day, I was looking through my old information and I was trying to figure out how I could fit in a part about one of the other things I talked about with the Mandela effect, which was the song "We Are the Champions" that Donald Trump walked out with on his national convention. And when he did that, I was listening to the song just to see of the importance, other than it was synced up to Queen Elizabeth. And I listened to the song and I noticed they don't say "of the world" at the end anymore. And I was like, that has to be a Mandela effect thing. And I looked it up, and of course, all these people were saying, yeah, that's the Mandela effect. It doesn't say "of the world" at the end anymore. And I'm baffled because I always remember it saying "of the world" at the end. And what's interesting about all this is that if you watch the movie The Mighty Ducks 2, at the very end, they are playing that song when they're sitting around a campfire, and the movie actually ends when they say "of the world." So possibly that is the false memory is because of the Mighty Ducks, but I still feel like I remember it from other things, but possibly, it's just weird. They actually do that on the Mighty Ducks of all movies, and I'm talking about the Mandela effect, and I was just sitting here thinking about how I could include this in the book about Donald Trump and "We Are the Champions," and I was getting almost done with work, and my boss came up to the register and actually bought something, and it was weird because she very rarely ever buys anything at the store. She brings her own, she drinks water, she brings her own food, and so on. So it was just odd that she would buy something. She does occasionally, but I thought, that's weird, and her total just happened to come to $516. And I was like, that is crazy. But then what was even crazier is like a second later, she started singing the song "We Are the Champions" out loud. And I was like, I stopped and I was like, why are you singing that song? And she's like, I don't know. It just popped into my head. And I was like, you're not going to believe this. Like, I was just looking at my phone and I was trying to figure out how to put the song "We Are the Champions" in this book that I'm writing and how it syncs up to the Mighty Ducks and whatever. And this number 516, and your total comes to 516, and then you start singing "We Are the Champions" for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And of course, she doesn't fully understand it or really care that much. So, I mean, what do you do? She's really cool and whatever, but some people just don't want to know this knowledge. They just they don't care. They're happy with whatever. They're happy with their belief system in the world instead of actually knowing what is going on in the world, and I guess that's why I continually make these videos and I'm trying to write this book, because I want to help other people in their journey of understanding, just how I'm in my journey of understanding, and for me, it's not about exposing this cabal, because, we need to. I really truly believe there is some type of cabal. Sometimes I question whether they're doing these bad things on purpose, because then we can learn more from it, Sometimes, I don't know, there's something I always have an open mind with this, and, there's things that seem like it's a bad thing, but sometimes, it could be a good thing. And really, in Hermeticism, good and bad are the same thing, and, there's a lot to this. But if it is bad, everything is truly bad, and we absolutely need to stop this. I'm going to say cabal, because it's more than one group of people with this understanding and with this knowledge that could change the world. And how are we going to stop them without understanding the knowledge ourselves, I mean, I have, they literally knew that we were going to learn reverse gematria, and they build up things for us to understand reverse gematria. That's why they flipped the script. That's why they had a story about Andrew Luck and his flip phone before that, because they were telling us that they were going to flip the script, or whoever was flipping it, however it's being done, the script was being flipped. And then we learned reverse gematria, and some guy starts a blog mocking my blog and refers to me as my name in reverse, right? And then his name equaled 166, just like reverse gematria. Then my uncle dies in a mysterious car crash, and I get a letter in the mail the same day that was express shipped with $300 in it, and my uncle's name equaled 166, and everything about him was 166. There's something really important to it. And if these people can do these things, without even physically doing anything to us, what good is it going to do to go storm Washington and burn it down? That just means to me that it's already planned. They already know that's going to happen. So the only way we're going to beat this system is to understand how to use this system. And also, it is good to awaken people from the spells that they are placed under, So, I mean, I can't say that exposing the cabal isn't part of what I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to wake people up from the spell that they are under. But at the same time, there's just no way that we're going to be able to create a better world without understanding this knowledge. So hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, I knew that what I was writing about right here, there was something important to it, and what I had talked about was how the horse Omaha Beach, like I said, had it was the trainer named Richard Mandela. And then Omaha Beach ended up dropping out of the race, and then the horse that won it was Country House, I believe is what his name was. And the horse that actually won but got disqualified was called Maximum Security. And the night before the Kentucky Derby, there was a plane crash in Florida that was coming back from Guantanamo Bay, right? A maximum security prison. So this plane skids off the runway in Florida from Guantanamo Bay. And then the next day, the major story is all about the horse named Maximum Security and how it was disqualified from the Kentucky Derby. So I knew it had to have something to do with the movie Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. Because I've never seen the movie before, but whenever I think of Guantanamo Bay, that's the first thing that comes to my head. I knew there had to be some type of importance to it. And back then I was following this major theme with how the Big Bang Theory was synced up to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and so on. And if you watched the Big Bang Theory episodes, the very last one that had the one where they surpassed Cheers for the 276th episode, that was on the date of 5/2, the same day that the Kentucky Derby was. And that episode just so happened to have the actor Cal Penn in it, who is one of the guys on Harold and Kumar, right? So I was like, that's the Indian guy. And I was like, I'm going to watch that movie. Maybe there's some clues in that movie. And I watched the movie, and they go to this whorehouse, and the lead horror lady, just, I was like, that lady looks so familiar. And I recognized who it was. It was this lady named Echo Valley. That's her stripper name. And years ago, I went to this rundown strip club with my friend Fonzo, and I got this lady's autograph and everything. At the time, she had like, I can't remember what it was. It was like, I wish I can't even find the information anymore. But at the time, she had like the biggest boobs or the fourth biggest boobs in the world. And they're like ridiculously huge and gross. But I remember like she about broke my glasses between her boobs and everything. And I just had this like, this memory of her. It's such a small, shitty strip club that like, I was like well known there because like we went there and played pool and whatever. It's I don't know how many strippers I used to hang out with and talk to and whatever. It's I even talked to this lady. We sat there and drank with her, did shots and whatever. It's I got an autographed picture of her and so on. I was like, this is crazy. I actually have like met this lady, had conversations with her, and a little bit just after they leave the whorehouse in that movie, the whores shoot and kill Doogie Howser, and then Harold and Kumar are driving in Doogie Howser's car, and the one guy pulls out a mask, and he's like this creepy mask, and it just so happened to be a Slipknot mask. It was a mask from the guy named Chris Fain, or however you say the guy's name, and I was like, that's interesting because I'm following this big theme with Slipknot and the Iowa State Fair and Donald Trump, and they were playing on 8/10, which is when Tisha B'Av began, and synced up to Zion and so on. And the next day in Zion, Illinois, a fan died at the Slipknot concert. But Slipknot just so happened to release a new single, and I had no idea they were going to do this. They released a new single on 5/16, the same day that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on The Big Bang Theory. This big date that I was watching out for, 5/16. And, a few days later, Gabrielle Crahan, or however you say her name, one of the guys in Slipknot, his daughter, that's who it is, she died, right? She died. It was just after they played on the Jimmy Kimmel show. I was talking all about China and how China was important to the fair symbolism. Slipknot was playing at the Iowa State Fair. We also had some Charles Manson stuff going on in the media around this time. And Charles Manson, the Manson family wrote "Death to Pigs" on the wall, and there was a Chinese pig ear. And Slipknot's only member to die was Paul Gray, and he is also known as the Pig. So I knew it was important to the Chinese pig ear and the World's Fair. And when Donald Trump said that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, that same month, the Batman shooter was sentenced. We also had a guy who dressed up and went around to hospitals and dressed like Batman died. We also had Morgan Freeman's granddaughter die, and Fox News and a bunch of other media, they showed a picture of him and her at the Batman premiere. And we also had the death of Batgirl Yvonne Craig. And I went back and I watched my old video where I talked about all that Batman symbolism. And I talked about Yvonne Craig, and she was in some movie with Elvis called It Happened at the World's Fair. And when I went and looked up her birthday, it just so happened to be May 16th, 5/16. So I was like, there's something super important to 516, the date of 500, 5/16, how it all syncs up, So I started thinking, maybe there's something important to the Mandela effect stuff again, right? And maybe it's something with South Africa, where Nelson Mandela is from, and so on. And when I looked up Nelson Mandela, I found out he was the president of South Africa for 5 years, 1 month, and 6 days, like 516, right? What are the odds of that? 516. And I looked up the date of 516, and I just thought it was interesting. In 2014, Wikipedia shows that a guy named Chris Duckworth died on that day, 5/16. Chris Duckworth. And I had just looked up the guy who played Mr. Ducksworth on the Mighty Ducks, Joseph Sommer, and his name equals 516 in English Extended. And if you go back and follow what I was talking about around this time, I was saying that the English Extended cipher was important. So it was interesting his name equals 516, right? Sing it up to the Mighty Ducks. I pointed out some other things here that are important. Maybe Elon Musk was important because this year's really important to a space theme, and the moon's anniversary being the 51st anniversary. Elon Musk had the Falcon Heavy launch, and his birthday's 6/28, and a lot of the stuff that I was talking about in 2019 and my YouTube strike that ended on 5/16, it was also synced up to Zach's porn hack that he had, and porn hack equals 516, and when his channel was originally taken down, it was on the date of 6/28, which was the 186th day of the year, and it was, or the day leaving 186 days, and it was 186 days after his house got crashed into, and so on. So I'm going to skip over that a little bit, but notice South Africa equals the same as Mighty Ducks. Just after I wrote about this, I looked up at the TV because I heard him talk about ducks, and my kid was watching Peppa Pig, and they were looking for a rubber ducky. And then my girlfriend texted me right after this, said my SUV started smoking, and they were in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and a big long thing. I had to quit writing for a long time and had to figure out how to get them home and whatever. And thankfully, I don't have no clue what's wrong with the car, but it still works. But when they got home, they must have bought some clay or something, and I started writing again, and all of a sudden I hear something about a duck and an egg. And I look over, and they have this clay thing, a duck made out of clay. And I'm like, really? You made a duck out of clay? And they have no idea that I'm even talking about any of this stuff. And they made a duck out of clay, you know? And I then just went to like Yahoo or something, and I typed in, let me find it here. Well, first I noticed that I looked up the Kentucky Derby again for this year, because I wondered what was, maybe the Kentucky Derby was important again. And it said that because of coronavirus, they rescheduled the Kentucky Derby to the date of 9/5, which is absolutely perfect because Mandela Effect equals 95. He supposedly died at the age of 95. If you write out 95, it equals 57 and 129, just like how Nelson Mandela equals 57 and 129. So what a day for them to move the Kentucky Derby, reschedule it to 9/5, which is also a day that's really important to my own life because Dan Barron equals 95. My full name, Daniel Edward Barron, equals 95. The band that I'm in is called Punch Clock Martyrs that equals 95, and we recorded our first album on the date of 9/5, you know? It's absolutely insane. It wasn't even on purpose. It's just how it worked out. But Kentucky Derby equals the same as coronavirus. And then I discovered that Nelson Mandela was the president for 5 years, 1 month, 6 days. And the guy who was the current president, his name equals 225, just like Nelson Mandela's name. Nelson Mandela died 225 days before his birthday. So, thought that was interesting. And I went to Yahoo, and I just typed in Nelson Mandela. It will not load here, but you can see it, Nelson Mandela. And the second story down just so happens to be one of the guys who went to jail with Nelson Mandela had died. He died on April 29th, right? I don't know what day I wrote this on. April 30th. It's probably late at night. Let's see. 11:04, yeah. So, you know, this guy had died the day before, and this was on the exact 1 year anniversary of me talking about the Mandela effect from 2019. All right, and think about how it's connected to the duck theme. Dennis Goldberg, of all people to die from South Africa, a guy who went to jail, one of the 13 people who went to jail with Nelson Mandela, named Dennis Goldberg, died on the 1 year anniversary of me having synchronicity with the Mandela effect. What are the odds of that? And his name equals 173, just like South Africa, just like the Mighty Ducks. It's just nuts. Synchronicity. So let me see here. There's more. Well, that's not part of it. But, okay, so today, let's just move on. Hopefully this makes sense. Like I said, you got to watch a lot of the old stuff. I'm trying to explain it in a way that's understandable, but it's definitely way easier to write it all. All right, so now it was actually yesterday that this story popped up on my CNN. This guy actually died on April 30th, and it's just kind of weird. It was yesterday. I had like so much stuff going on yesterday, and I didn't even write anything in the book. I really wanted to, or I did. I wrote it in the morning, and then later, basically, I had to leave. I was gone all day, and then I felt terrible all day yesterday for some reason. But I I took a picture of this because I thought maybe there was something important to it, because not too long ago we had the death of the other Bollywood guy, this guy, Irfan Khan, and he was in the movie Life of Pi that has something to do with the tiger. I've never watched the movie, but I've been talking about Tiger King and Tiger and how it's all important, right, to the coronavirus and so on. And I wondered if there was something important to it. So I took a screenshot of it, and I just started documenting about it tonight. And it's just odd that it would still be on CNN for me, even though he died on April 30th. But I started just reading the article, and when you get down farther, it says that his first Bollywood movie was a movie called Mera Naam Joker. My Name is Joker. And I mean, if you looked at what I've recently documented about, the last thing I wrote about in this book was all about how Donald Trump had met the Prime Minister of India in Houston, and that was just before the Joker movie came out. And it was also after Andrew Luck had retired and Dwight Howard had re-signed with the Lakers on Kobe Bryant's birthday. And I talked about how all of this was important to China and a space theme. And Jeremy Lin was on the Toronto Raptors, and he said he didn't get respect or whatever, so he left and he went to play for the Beijing Ducks. And his birthday is the same as Kobe Bryant's. And, he's important to the Lakers and also to China. But the Rockets are also important to Yao Ming. And Yao Ming has the same birthday as Andrew Luck. And, just a ton of stuff here. Jeremy Lin, the Raptors are the team that Kobe Bryant got his 81 points against, and he made his comeback against the Raptors after tearing his Achilles on Dwight Howard's birthday. And that was also Dwight Howard's birthday was also the same day as the Chris Paul trade that got annulled, and then that's how the Lakers ended up getting Dwight Howard the next year, and so on, right? So all of this important stuff, and is all synced up to China. But I was talking about India and how I thought there was something important to the Dalai Lama, who had to flee from Tibet to go to India because of the Tibetan uprising against China. And all of this is important to Batman, right? Because just after that, we had the Joker movie come out, and we had the South Park episodes called Mexican Joker, and then the next one was called Banned in China, and then the next one was called Shots, and Cartman turned into a pig when he tried to get they tried to give him his shots, right? His vaccines, and think about China and the coronavirus, and, he turned into a pig because it's a Chinese pig year on that plane where, in the episode called Banned in China that came out just before the Joker movie, on the plane they had LeBron James and James Harden, and also the player named Will Barton for the Denver Nuggets, and, he was synced up as well. His name equaled 126, like the day that Kobe Bryant died. But the same day of the Joker movie coming out, we got a story about the Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey tweeting in favor of the Hong Kong riots, and it caused this big old thing, and it caused China to cut ties with the Houston Rockets and so on, right? And I knew there was something important to the Dalai Lama and how it somehow it's synced up to China and whatever, and this Indian prime minister going to Houston to meet with Donald Trump, and then the first games that were played in India, the first ever NBA games were preseason games that were played on the same day that the Joker movie came out, October 4th. And of course, it was the Indiana Pacers, right, from the land of the Indian, and they played the Sacramento Kings, which are important to Kobe Bryant and the coronavirus, and corona meaning crown, and Kobe having the crown tattoo, and LeBron James being King James, and Luke Walton leaving the Lakers to go coach the Kings. And DeMarcus Cousins is the reason Dwight Howard came to the Lakers, and DeMarcus Cousins tore his Achilles 2 years exactly to the day before Kobe Bryant did against the Houston Rockets, right? He's a former Sacramento King. That's why China Thomas died, Isaiah Thomas's sister, in 2017, because there was this big China and Houston Rockets and space theme going on. And China Thomas died in King County, Washington. Her brothers used to wear number 22 when he played for the Kings. The word King equals 22. You know, she died in a Toyota Camry. The word Camry means crown. It was all synced up to Stephen Curry winning the NBA Finals that year. Stephen also means crown. That's why they made it a point that Steph Curry was the first person in the NBA to get tested for coronavirus, right? He got sick right around the time of coronavirus, and just much, much more, you know. So I'm just talking about all the stuff with India and so on. And then this guy's in this movie called My Name is Joker, right? Synced up to the Joker movie stuff that I'm talking about. I'm thinking India, and I'm thinking about Harold and Kumar and the guy Kal Penn is important to India. And on the Big Bang Theory episode where Buffy the Vampire Slayer's on there, it's the Indian guy Raj who takes her as a date to Sweden when Sheldon gives his Nobel Prize speech and so on. So there's something super duper important. Even that guy died age 67. His name equals 67. My Name is Joker equals 76. Joker equals 76. Houston Rockets equals 76. Remember the movie came out 76 days after the anniversary of the Batman shooting, which is also the anniversary of the moon landing, right? And that Batman shooting was in Aurora, Colorado, right? Aurora, where the duck boat crash originally happened in Seattle, right? On the Aurora Bridge. And then we got the Aurora shooting the same day I got the YouTube strike on 215. And in the previews of that Batman movie, they showed a preview for the movie Skyfall, the James Bond movie that was going to be coming out in November that year of 2012. And in the preview, they showed a building that said Aurora on it. And then that same night, Aurora, Colorado got shot up. But the building they showed was the building in China called the Aurora Plaza. So, you know, it's synced up. And I know there's something important to the moon landing this year. And I noticed that India is trying to land on the moon this year in 2020. They're trying to be the fourth country outside of the United States, Russia, and China to land on the moon. So I don't fully get it, you know, but that's why I'm saying you got to document these things to understand it better. But I was looking up the two Bollywood actors who had just died then, because I was like, there's got to be something important to that other guy who just died. And it says that, you know, less than 24 hours after his death, actor Rishi Kapoor, his co-star in D-Day, died from leukemia. So these two guys, they die on April 29th and April 30th. And if you go back and look at my blog posts from April 29th and April 30th of 2019, where I talked about the Mandela effect and so on, and how it was synced up to Omaha Beach, the horse who was trained by Richard Mandela. I talked about D-Day, but then blog posts were on April 29th and April 30th, the same 2 days that these guys died. And then they're in a movie called D-Day. And it's interesting because this year it's going to be the 76th anniversary of D-Day, right? Just like how Joker equals 76. It's like how Houston Rockets equals 76 and so on. So I don't know. Maybe we need to watch D-Day, right? D-Day and Francis Bacon even equals 66, and it happened on, 6/6. I talked a lot about how the Francis Bacon ciphers are absolutely one of the most important ciphers, I feel like, and D-Day equals 66. So hopefully this video makes sense. I'm going to keep writing. There's so many other things going on, but it seems like every time I start writing about something, the next day there's media articles that are connected to it, So we'll see what happens here. I don't even know what I'm going to finish writing. I'm going to start writing a lot about Kobe Bryant and synchronicity I had with a Swiss dime. I explained the space theme, but the Batman stuff's really important still. I even talked about the Sam Lloyd guy dying, and it's on my phone. I didn't even put it on the computer yet, but after I wrote about this guy in Back to the Future, I went to Netflix the next night, and first time I even been to Netflix in a while, and Netflix kept telling me to watch the movie Back to the Future. I'm like, what are the odds, But earlier this year, I talked about how Christopher Lloyd and Back to the Future were important to coronavirus and so on, because the word wolf, the NBA All-Star Week was held in Chicago. That's important to Zach LaVine, who did the Space Jam dunk when he was a teen wolf. And the night before, his teammate Andrew Wiggins won the Rising Star Challenge, or the MVP of that, and he's a teen wolf. And then Kevin Garnett came back to the Timberwolves, and he's the original teen wolf. And I talked about all this stuff, how it's synced up. And Michael J. Fox, his name equals 56, and Kevin Garnett equals 56, and the word wolf equals 56, and coronavirus equals 56, and talked about how Christopher Lloyd equals 81, and he's 81 years old right now, and so on. And then all of a sudden we get the death of Christopher Lloyd's nephew at the age of 56, right? And it's interesting, Michael J. Fox was even on a few episodes of Scrubs that he is famous for, so coronavirus 56. This guy died 176 days before Christopher Lloyd's birthday, and Back to the Future equals 176, and his birthday was November 12th. And November 12th in Back to the Future is the day that the clock tower gets struck at 10:04, right? And 10:04 is the day that leaves 88 days in the year. Of course, it's 88 miles per hour in time travel, so Michael Jackson was on the 58th episode and the 59th episode of Scrubs, and he's 58 years old right now, and he will be turning 59 years old. Sam Lloyd died 191 days after Christopher Lloyd's birthday, and Michael J. Fox also equals 191. And it's also interesting that a while back I documented about the movie Mask and with Rocky Dennis and how I think there's something important to it. And the guy who plays Rocky Dennis in the movie is Eric Stoltz, and Eric Stoltz is the original guy who was supposed to be Marty McFly in Back to the Future. And Michael J. Fox in 2019 got his first tattoo, and the guy who was doing the tattoo was wearing a surgical mask, making us think of coronavirus, right? And masks are important. And this original guy who was Marty McFly, he's famous for the movie Mask, where he portrays Rocky Dennis, and Rocky Dennis died on 10/4, reminding us of the clock in Back to the Future, and his name equals 56. So it makes me wonder if there's something important with Sam Elliott or Cher that were in that movie. And they both have gematria of 195, just like Houston, Texas. I've been following this number. I don't know what it means, but there's something important to 195. Slipknot also wears the masks. I don't know, but I hear my kid crying. I'm just going to end the video there. Hopefully that explains a little bit of synchronicity, but I feel like I didn't do the greatest job explaining a lot of it because there's so much to explain. So hopefully if you watch them old videos or have watched them old videos and sort of know what I'm talking about, you can appreciate what I've just presented. So have a good one. Peace.